Um, you mentioned about Google being American and $2 trillion company. See, I look at Google as being a wholly owned subsidiary of communist China,
Why would you say
an
that?
American company, an American company that is sold out to the values of communist
Why do you say
China.
that? I'll
Censorship.
challenge you on that.
Yeah, because of their censorship regimen,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
and because if China doesn't like it, they're not going to allow you to say it on their
I don't
platforms.
know if that's how far they go because I think they're banned in China. And I agree with you that they censor a lot and that they do automated censorship. It's very kind of crappy. And they have such a big power that by influencing a search result, they can determine the outcome of an election.
Yeah.
And they've tried to do that too, which is astonishing. But I don't know that they have that much allegiance to China. But we can agree
They're
to
still doing
disagree.
it, by the way. Yeah, they're still doing it, and that's again, we have so many people, and I think, and this is what I wanted you to address, that those in the business community that look at China as a potential business opportunity, and to expand their business and to grow their business. As a capitalist, and is actually a free enterprise guy, I'm not really a capitalist. I'm more free enterprise because I don't believe the government ought to be putting their thumbs on the scale at all.
Yeah,
If you got a good widget, you should be able to sell it. If not, the
absolutely.
government shouldn't be bailing your ass out.
No, I
Um,
no.
but my fundamental question is this about corporate America, because you're seeing a whole bunch of nations around the planet buying into this propaganda. Hell, a lot of Democrats are pushing this propaganda that America's on the decline, China's on the ascendancy, and you better throw in your lot with communist China just to get this so-called burgeoning market of theirs access to it. What is your thought on businesses that are selling out to communist China and maybe turning their back on what it is to be an American?
Yeah, I think it's a huge mistake. I've never done business in China, and there's a reason. One, I mean, you set foot in there, you do the wrong thing, they'll arrest you. And that's, you're in foreign territory, and there's no reason to trust them. Secondly, China's one of these things where they'll open up the market to you and then kind of yank the rug out from under you. I mean, you go in there and you teach them how to do your business. A guy like me go there and teach them about pharmaceuticals. They say, sure, we'll pay you $100 million for the next few years, but in about 6 years, the entire biopharma industry has, unfortunately, a lot of that innovation has gone to China. They've learned how to do what we used to only us used to be able to make, things like really complicated drugs like antibody drug conjugates are some of the hardest drugs in the world to make. They were made in Seattle originally. And it is American pride that you could make such a technical achievement. And now Chinese are leading at that. It's really surprising. How'd that happen? Well, a bunch of American companies went over to China and said, we want to sell 100 million, a paltry sum to these Chinese people who can't even afford our drugs. And lo and behold, quickly China became, a big force in this field. So now, it's basically just IP theft. And, I worry quite a bit. And again, I mentioned my wonderful wife who's sitting here. I worry quite a bit about Chinese infiltration of American institutions. I mean, I love Chinese Americans. But when you go to some of these tech companies, virtually everyone is Chinese. And there's nothing wrong with that on its face. There are many wonderful Chinese Americans. But you sit there and say, am I sure that every person at a wonderful company like OpenAI or Anthropic or Anduril or whatever, Palantir, should all these people be Chinese? And, are some of them taking this technology and bringing it back, so to speak, home? And it's just something that raises my eyebrow. I certainly don't want to be accused of being racist. A lot of Chinese people I really love. A lot of them love America. But it is fascinating to see an entire company, virtually completely Chinese immigrants often, or Indian immigrants, and almost no kind of people that just grew up here and were Americans to start. So it's just a little odd. A lot of H1B visa folks who, should they be working at our most elite companies? It is a question that a lot of people have asked. Obviously, I think some of them should. There's a lot of talent out there. If people want to come to America and assimilate and be a part of our wonderful nation, that's how we grew our nation, with people like Albert Einstein coming to America and many others. But, it's odd when the whole damn company is, completely Chinese or Indian. I struggle to understand that sometimes.
Well, I watched my father. My father was had a chip company in Silicon Valley, and they would have Chinese guys who would work for them, and invariably they would monitor kind of what they were doing, and invariably they would catch some of these guys sending IP designs, et cetera, back to China. Then they would contact the FBI. They would have the evidence that the FBI and the FBI guy would come out, and then the FBI guy would basically describe that there's nothing much we could really do. You probably should just fire him, and there you go. So they had this one guy, my dad just wouldn't let it go. And he found out that they had hired him from Cisco, where he had done the same thing. And
Right.
Cisco had fired him, but they didn't tell anybody why they fired him because
Right.
the law in California prevents you from telling anybody why you fire people. So this guy had worked evidently at 6 or 7 of our most advanced chip companies and was just sending everything back, and he never got punished. I don't know. Eventually, everybody figured out his name. So
And again, there's not much money out there in China. If Google opened up to China, China's going to force you to use Alibaba. China's going to force you to use the other companies. There's a reason. Mark Zuckerberg learned Chinese. He's a clever guy. And I told Barron Trump, who was telling me that Elon was the guy and he was the man and we love Elon. I said, don't sleep on Zuckerberg. He's very shrewd. He's a tremendous businessman, and make sure you talk to him as well. And Zuck learned Chinese to warm himself up to that market. And it's something that I would do. It's really subversive move to try to get that billion people market. And they shut him out. They said, there's no way we're letting you in here. And, we know that you're too powerful. You come into China, you're going to take over China. You're going to be able to control our people's thoughts. You're going to be able to control what they see. There's only one person that can do that. That's the CCP. And, he was shut out of China, but he tried his hardest. And, I don't think there's much money out there, to be honest. China's economy, they stopped reporting unemployment. I mean, that's insane. Nobody asks any questions in China.
Communist. That's what communists do, man. Leftists lie. It's a Salcedo show axiom. Leftists lie. They always lie because the truth is they suck. Communism sucks. Socialists suck.
Chris,
And they can't compete. And they know it, and we know it,
Chris,
and so all they're going to do is lie.
the estimate of their unemployment is around 40%, 40.
Holy
We're
moly.
at 4. And
Yeah.
this is what socialism looks like. And Madbani, or whatever his name is, wants to bring it to New York City, which, New York City is a funny place. I grew up here my whole life, 42 years in New York City. It's a melting pot for sure. But what's really crazy is, and I know this may be a little controversial, but heck, why not? Jews helped build this city. Now, I'm not Jewish, and I have no reason, my wife's not Jewish, we have no reason to sort of do anything but be clear and, call a spade a spade. And when the massacre, the terrorist attack happened from Hamas in Israel, you have people in New York, which is almost like a very Jewish identifying city, protesting, against a terrorist attack, for the terrorists.